Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, and you are watching the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I have a secret, but you can't tell anybody. Please don't tell anybody. But I have heard the new mix and master of Badfinger's Head First album, the legendary unreleased album. And I'm going to tell you about it. But some of you people are going, oh, Badfinger, oh yeah, come and get it. Oh, day after day, oh, no matter what, oh, I love those songs, oh, power pop. Badfinger was way more than that. You know, they signed with Apple Records as the Ivies, and at that point, it was Pete Ham on vocals, guitar, piano, keyboards, etc., Tommy Evans on guitar and vocals, Mike Gibbons on drums and vocals, and Ron Griffiths on bass and vocals. And they put out an album called Maybe Tomorrow. The album, I think, only got released in like Germany or something. Then Paul McCartney wrote the song Come and Get It. They recorded it and changed their name to Badfinger. Ron Griffiths split the band, and they had a huge hit with Come and Get It. Joey Molland joins on guitar and vocals, and they put out albums, and they were having hits, but Apple Records, there were issues, there was money, there was this, there was that, and by 1973, Apple Records was going down the tubes, and so Badfinger left Apple. They had finished recording their last album called Ass. I said a naughty word. And then they signed with Warner Brothers, and then they released the album Badfinger, produced by Chris Thomas. But this is a very, very, very fine album, very different from their Apple stuff. This showed them sort of breaking out of, that sort of Beatle-esque pop. It was a great variety, but still very much Badfinger. And then even later that year, they put out another album called Wish You Were Here, also produced by Chris Thomas. This is my favorite album of all time. I love this album from beginning to end. But then after this, something crazy happened. There were, internal strife. There was financial issues. Pete Ham quit the band. Pete Ham, of all people, quit Badfinger. And the rest of the guys, they had to fulfill a tour, so they brought in a great musician by the name of Bob Jackson, who sort of took Pete's place. I mean, he was just going to be there for the live performances. But after 3 weeks, Pete was coerced back into Badfinger, so Badfinger was now a quintet. And so Joey Molland quit. And so people have thought that Bob Jackson replaced Joey Molland, but he actually replaced Pete Ham. And then Pete Ham came back, and then Joey Molland left. And then that version of Badfinger were forced into the studio to record another album. Now, the band was not ready to record an album. I mean, they recorded at Savile Row, which was where the Beatles recorded Let It Be. So even though they were still technically signed to Warner Brothers, they were sort of back home with the Beatles again. They finished that album, and there were legal issues between their manager and Warner Brothers, and the album was shelved after they had finished it. Now, the album wasn't produced by Chris Thomas. It was produced by Kenny Kerner and Richie Weiss, who were pretty prolific producers around that time. Yeah, the album, it just got shelved. The first time I ever heard any song from Head First was when Rhino put out the Best of Badfinger Volume 2. And on this album were very, very rough cassette mixes of 4 songs off of Head First. So that just whetted everybody's appetite, and I'm sure there were bootlegs floating around, but at that point, I had no idea of any bootlegs. Until the year 2000, and a label called Snapper released Head First on CD. There it is, right there. That is the 2 CD version that came out on Snapper, and it has the full album and demos. But this album is also, I believe it's taken from like reel-to-reel mixdown. Just a quick mix down, it's not the final mix, anything like that. This is all we had. It was slightly better than the songs that were on the Rhino compilation, but for almost 25 years, this is it. This is all we had, and this has been out of print forever. But they found the master tapes to Head First. Now, I've left out talking about the tragedies here, but roughly 4 months after finishing recording Head First, Pete Ham took his own life. And Badfinger fell apart, obviously. Headfirst never released, sat in the vaults for, like I said, until the year 2000. So for years, they could not find the master tapes to Headfirst. Well, they did find the master tapes to Headfirst. And sole surviving Badfinger member from that lineup, Joey Molland is still with us, thankfully. But Pete is gone, Tommy is gone, and Mike Gibbons is gone. And Bob Jackson is the perfect person to go back in the studio and give this a proper mix and master. Because he was on it. He was there. He knew what the band wanted. He probably heard dozens of mixes, over the course of, the few weeks that they had to record this album. And maybe I should tell you what I think of this new version of Headfirst. I was never a huge fan of Headfirst. I love the song Lay Me Down. When this snapper version of the CD came out, I was underwhelmed because they were coming off my favorite album of all time. So, of course, my expectations are super high. I actually really like the album now. It has a freshness to it, a sparkle. Now, Bob did not go in and use AI. He did not add any instrumentation. This is Badfinger as Badfinger were in, December 1974. But it doesn't sound like 1974. He did not go in and do this radical remix. No, he just wiped away the cobwebs, brought some things up, some things down, moved things around a little bit, but kept everything on the same level. So, I'm not going to get too in-depth on that. I'm telling you, it sounds fresh. It sounds invigorating. It sounds exciting. The track list, or the order of the songs, is vastly improved. Not a big radical difference, but it's just very much improved. It gives the album a whole different feel. One of the things that I really, really love, and this is as in-depth as I'm going to get here, is on this version of Headfirst, when on Lay Me Down, which is one of Pete Ham's greatest songs, you hear the backing vocals, this coming out of the center. On the new version of Headfirst, they're big and spacious coming out of both channels. And it's like, wow, it sounds far more epic. It's subtle, but it's epic. And it is incredible. Now, I wish I could tell you more, but I'm not really supposed to be talking about this at all. I have been sworn to secrecy. But I will tell you that it's coming out on vinyl for the very first time. You are going to be able to own Headfirst on vinyl, this new mix, master by Bob Jackson. So that's really all I can say. I mean, I know I did this big build-up. Oh, my God, Badfinger Headfirst. But I've been getting texts through this entire video, and I'm staring down at them right now, and they're saying, remember, do not release any information about this album. I'm getting that straight from the people involved with this release. And they keep telling me, don't. They say, I know you're tempted, but don't. And I started thinking to myself, I've already told you about it. This is something you need to own. Any Badfinger fan, if you have the Snapper one, or if you don't, this is fresh and exciting. Like I said, it's not this big radical, like, oh my God, it used to be mono, now it's stereo, 4K, all this kind of stuff. No, it's not that big radical, but it's enough to change, to affect your emotions in a whole different way. And that's what great music does. And it's wonderful. Bob Jackson did a great job. So I started thinking, as I started getting these texts, thinking to myself, well, hell, why don't I just play a song from it? Because look, I've already said too much already. Now, what I didn't tell you is this album is coming out, it's going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary, but literally celebrating its 50th anniversary, because although the album didn't come out, the album is scheduled to come out in December, the 50th anniversary of their last day of recording it there in Savile Row. So that's exciting enough. That just tickles your fancy. This is something you need to own. And if I can, I'm going to play a song for you. I mean, look, the worst that can happen is they could find out that I played a song and they could edit this video. They could edit it off, at the end of the video. And that's highly unlikely that that's going to happen.